Hello, I'm Robert, and this is now another one of the many false prophecies by Paul Begley is scaring some people. So, fact checker and science blog and having people who are scared of many things. So, now Paul Begley, so I say here, Paul Begley would probably say the world will end if a leaf fell on his head. So, that's kind of, if you're good picking up that satire or irony. And at any rate, his false prophecy for December is totally harmless. It's not even going to do as much to Earth as a single leaf falling in autumn. So what is he saying is going to happen? Well, it's actually quite a nice thing that's actually going to happen. It's the Saturn and Jupiter are going to be close together in the sky. So for astronomers, then this is using SkySafari Pro. This is the this gives you an idea of what it'll look like in a telescope. So there's Jupiter with its moons. So Jupiter you can see even with binoculars. You can see its moons. You can't see Jupiter as looking like that. But if you even with binoculars you can see its 4 larger moons. It's got lots of small ones that you can't see. But the 4 big ones, the ones that Galileo saw with his telescope. So that's going to be 886 million kilometers from Earth at the time. Vast, vast distance. And then in the same field of a small telescope, you'll also see Saturn and its moons. That's nearly double the distance, 1,600 and so many million kilometers from Earth. And these two planets are 773 million kilometers apart from each other. So there's just no way that anything's going to happen. They're just flying past each other, great distance. And we actually have a satellite called Juno that's orbiting Jupiter at the moment. And from that satellite, if you looked at Saturn, you would see it's a very distant star, just a bright star in its sky. Then if you look in the other direction, you see Earth as a star. Now I couldn't find a picture of Earth as a star from Jupiter, but here's a picture of Earth as a star seen from Saturn. So this is what Earth would look like from Saturn. And so if you want Saturn, you'd see Jupiter quite close to Earth in your night sky. But it would Earth, of course, is nowhere near Earth, but it's in the same line of sight. Because just as from Earth, you see Jupiter and you see Saturn. Saturn would see Jupiter and see Earth. And if you're on Jupiter, you'd see Earth like a tiny faint star in one way, and see Jupiter as a brighter star in the other way, because they're so far apart. And as I say here, it's like, I think there's going to be some sound if I play this. And I'll just turn the sound down. So you just watch a minute, you'll see a plane flew past in front of the moon. And just play that again. So this happens from time to time, and the plane obviously is nowhere in. Let's do that again. So in this, I hope you can see, you understand, that plane is nowhere near the moon. If you were on the plane, you wouldn't see the moon, except far in the sky, like we do from the ground. So it's just like that with Jupiter and Saturn. And if you're on Jupiter, you wouldn't see Saturn anywhere close. They're just nowhere near each other. So sorry, what's that done? Oh, it just finished. Anyway, so that's why there's nothing to be scared of, and it happens every 20 years. The last time that Jupiter and Saturn were close to each other was there we are, like that. But it wasn't quite as close as that. Was in the year 2000, and then I think it's 2080 or something. It's the next time it's getting close, and it's each time they go past each other. So Jupiter goes round the Earth every 12 years. It goes round the Sun every 12 years. I sometimes just say the wrong word. I meant the Sun, I said the Earth. Jupiter goes round the Sun every 12 years, and Saturn, I can't remember its period now. It's a lot longer than that. And then they overtake each other, and let's look Saturn period. Um, she's going to ask me, I just I agree, okay? Saturn orbital period. $30 years, just short of 30 years. And then the combination of the two of those means that, and the Earth's orbit is 1 year around the Sun, so it's all very complicated. But as seen from Earth, then Jupiter laps Saturn on the inside every 20 years, because it does its 12 years around the Sun. But by the time it's gone on 12 years around to go around the Sun to back where it was, Saturn has moved on to another 4 years, so it takes another 8 years. It takes another 8 years to catch up with Saturn again, and then overtake it again on the inside. They'll keep on doing that, and Saturn going around in its 30-year thing, and Jupiter on its 12-year thing, and then we're going around once a year as well. So you've got to take account of that as well. And when you take account of all that, then we see this every 20 years. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. And this is about how to observe it. So you can have I'll put a link to this in the video description. You can have a click on that on how to observe it. And you've got finder charts here. If you go to EarthSky, for instance, and I'll just pick it up, but you can go and read that properly. Then it shows you how to see it. So there we are. That's, it's just because I'm in private browsing. So this shows where it is, not November 18th. So if you go and look in the sky at the nightfall, and you have a clear sky, which we don't often have here in the west coast of Scotland, then this time of year, then you see Saturn and Jupiter close to each other. And then if you went out on the 15th of December, then you would see them very close to each other. But they would be, you need especially, you get it more easily if you look at it from the equator. But because it's this line, the ecliptic, and if you're on the equator, that's more or less vertically upwards. And the further north you are, the shallower it is, and so the closer it's going to be to the horizon. And you need a very low horizon to be able to see this, especially if you're at a higher latitude. All the planets along this line, that's the plane of the ecliptic. They tend to, they are a little bit to one side or the other. And then you're basically looking right across the solar system at all the planets in this big disk, and then we're one of the planets as well. Looking at vast distance into the solar system. And this is the disks, this is the plane of the ecliptic that all the planets are moving in. Just they'll be a little bit above and below, but very close to it, as the moon is also quite close to it. So that's how you see it, and it's quite difficult to see. So hopefully you're a bit less scared about that. It's a perfectly normal thing. And then this chap who I say he says the world's going to end when even he's a little bit like like Chicken Little. If a knot falls in his head, then he thinks the world's going to end. And that's I'm not sure. I don't think he really. Very hard to imagine he actually believes it, because he says it so often, But he's like a Chicken Little who not even just one nut falls on his head, but every month another nut falls on his head, and he panics just as much. And then he tells everyone the world's going to end. Every month, more than that, most weeks. So, but it's not. And he also said that the world's going to end because it starts with the 13th Bakhtun in the Mayan calendar. But he's not Mayan. What does he know about the Mayan calendar? It's a bit like a Mayan saying that it's year 2000 in our calendar. He's very arrogant, or ignorant, or whatever. Anyway, if you look, this is us. We have 15 days into the 0th month, I should say the first month. I'll fix that. Of the 8th year, 8th tune of the 14th Bakhtun in the Mayan calendar. 1308 or 15. in the Mayan calendar. And so that's 8 tunes, which is eight years ago. But the Mayan years are shorter than our years. They have 360 days. So very unusually, the new year in the Mayan calendar comes around at a different time every year. It's a few days short each year, and gradually comes back further and further. So in 2012 it was in December, and now we're 15 days into it, so it's now in November, and the new year in the Mayan calendar will keep moving back and back each year. Because each year it's 360 days, each year it's 5 or 6 days further back in our calendar compared to ours. So it's the 8th year, 8th tune. Better call it a tune than a year, because it's not the solar year, it's the Mayan tune. And every 400 of those tunes, which is a bit less than 400 of our years, then the Mayans celebrate. So they last celebrated in 1618, Tuesday, September 18, 1618. And the world didn't end then. Before that they celebrated in 1224, and the world didn't end then. And this is just the 13th one, and that was December 21st, 2012. And they never said the world would end. It's just totally made up by non-Mayans, and mainly for a movie. And then some new agey people who sort of looked at the Mayan calendar and said, and they started saying, oh, all sorts of strange things going to happen, and we're all going to uplift into another dimension, or whatever they think, some crazy idea. But nothing happens. It's just a new 400-year period. They use base 20, and 2020 is a 400. We use base 10, 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So that's why they celebrate every 400 years, because they're using base 20 instead of base 10. So the next one is 2407, 2801, and so on. And it keep on going. Then the first Pictune in 4772. And obviously they wouldn't have Pictunes unless if they didn't think the calendar was going to continue at least as far as that. And then they have other I forget the names, but the other units even bigger than Pictune. They go forward millions of years, you can do with the Mayan calendar. And then there are many other calendars. So I'm just going to bring up this rather fine page that does a list of lots of calendars simultaneously. So you go and look at them. That's our one, the Gregorian calendar, 24th of November. That's the Mayan one. And that's the 13th back tune, and it's the 8th tune of the 13th back tune, and the 15th day of the first year. 0 means the first year. First month, sorry, in 20 months in a year. And 30 days in a month, making 18 days to a month, making 360 days in a year. There's the French Revolutionary calendar. That dates back to the French Revolution, 229. So, eventually we reached year 1000 in the French Revolutionary calendar. There's the Islamic calendar. His year 1000 was 442 years ago. Here's the Hebrew calendar. His year 5000 was 781 years ago. The Julian is the same, almost exactly as the Gregorian, but if you go and look at the Ethiopic, then 2013, so their year 2000 was 13 years ago. The Persian one, 399 years ago. The Coptic one, 737 years ago. They all have these, celebrate the year 1000 on different years, or the year 2000 or whatever it is. And then the Chinese, a completely different cycle, 78, year 37. So 37 years ago, they would have the start of the 78th cycle. And the Discordian one, whatever that is, year of Lady of Discord, 2008, 186, I'm not sure what that means, what that one is, but there we are, lots of different calendars. And what we can actually put in, how does it do it? I'm not guessing, I don't know if it's right. See if it lets you convert that date. There we are, it did. So, the 21st of December 2020, it'll be 13/8, and then it'll be second month of the Mayan calendar. Remember, they're only 18-day months, so it's quite short months. And it'll be the second day of the second month of the 8th tune of the Mayan calendar. And the others are all very, very similar to what they were before. And year solar cycle 78. These are all, I think most of these are the same years as I read out before. So there we go. So and then you could make your own calendar. You could start a calendar today, and then the year 1,000 years from now, and if you could manage to, if some reason your calendar really took on, then 1,000 years from now, everyone would be celebrating the year 1000. And nothing would happen except they celebrate it. And to take a kind of quite possible future example, then we might someday have lunar colonies, people living in the lava tube caves on the moon. And it'd be quite natural if they start becoming independent enough to want their own calendar. Then a reasonable date to start from might be the 20th of July 1969, the date of the first human footprint on the moon. So in that case, their first millennium would be the year 20th of July 2969. And nothing would happen on that date except celebrations of 1,000 years of humans on the moon. So so that's it. You just don't. There's nothing at all harmful there. And so I did this little meme thing. False prophecies are as harmless as daisies. No. False prophecies are as harmless as daisies. And so now Paul Bekki tells you the world will end because his birthday is on that date. So you don't die of other people's birthdays. Birthdays are not dangerous. He says because Jupiter and Saturn will be close together in the sky. This happens every 20 years. People don't die of this. It is not dangerous. He says because it's the shortest day of the year. Again, the shortest day happens every year. The shortest day in the northern hemisphere, the longest day in the southern hemisphere, and you won't die of this. It is not dangerous. All that will happen after the shortest day is the next day is very slightly longer. The previous day is very slightly longer. Then you get the shortest day because the days get shorter in winter, then they get longer again. That's all that happens there. And because the new back tune in the Mayan calendar, it happened over 7 years ago. It happened over 8 years ago in the Mayan, 8 tunes ago. You can't die of a new back tune more than you can die of a new day. A new day in any calendar is not dangerous. And I should link to I've already linked to it up there. So here's a good longer thing about that, about what the modern Mayans say. They will not. There's you could go in here and listen some of the things that the modern Mayan in our group, and he's got his grandfather didn't have very kind words to say about he really he had his peace of mind about the Westerners coming and telling him that the Mayans had prophesied the world was going to end when he's a Mayan, and they know nothing about the Mayan culture at all. They just didn't have a clue, and they were coming and telling him what the Mayans believed. Just like this Paul Bekki is doing even more than that. He's not only telling them what they believe, but he's telling them what the year is in their calendar. Just incredible. They just think they can do anything because they're not. It's not the European calendar. It's not a person's calendar. And they just not showing any respect for it. So anyway, hopefully you're now no longer scared. I very much hope that this has helped alleviate the fears that some people are having about this, because there's nothing to be scared. There's nothing dangerous, nothing harmful. None of these false prophecies. You can just ignore. People can't see the future, and we can predict things. So this astronomers can predict things. So this is totally predictable. The reason this is predictable, now the person who made this is made with SkySafari Pro. Now the people who made this with SkySafari Pro, it's not because they could see the future. They're not prophets. So it's very important to realize when scientists draw something like this, they're not prophets. They're not looking at the future. They can draw this because they know how the planets move, they know how the moons move. See, they can see where every single moon it will be, because they know the exact orbit of the moons around Jupiter, and of Jupiter around the Sun. And they know the exact orbits of Saturn around the Sun, and of Saturn's moons around Saturn, which you can see in a different plane, like that and like that. And they just know, they just know this from how they work. And it's rather like, if you say someone says you want to throw something to someone, they've dropped something, you throw it over them, and then they'll catch it. Then you don't throw it off like that. You know which way to throw it. Now, that isn't through prophecy. You don't say, oh, I prophesy that if I throw it like that, it'll reach them, and if I throw it like that, it won't reach them. It's not through prophecy. It's through understanding gravity in an intuitive way. You know that if you throw it like that, that's where it's going to end. And so you're not seeing the future, you're not prophesying, you just know how things work. And if you drop something, you know it'll fall. And it's very much the same way that they know, or if you're a golfer and you hit a golf ball, then you know if it's going to land on the green. So it's very much the same way, but just very much more precise, and over a longer period of time, and with very, very precise long observations of these. And we know the orbit of Saturn and Jupiter very precisely, because we've had Cassini has been orbiting Saturn for a long time. Sadly, there's nothing orbiting it just now, and the Juno is orbiting Jupiter, and when you've got a satellite orbiting, and then you've got the back and forth signals between Earth and Jupiter, and between Earth and Saturn in the case of Cassini, then that gives you very, very precise positioning of the planet from measuring the time that it comes from here to the planet and back again. We understand the orbits of these planets very, 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 very well. And based on that, they're going to be 773 million kilometers precisely apart from each other. And now these distances that I've typed, 886.49 million kilometers and 1,619.70 million kilometers. And there's no harm there. Nothing there can harm us at all. And so, anyway, I hope this has helped alleviate your fear. And there's the Facebook group Doomsday Debunked if you don't know about it, and then if you want to help people who are scared of many things, then do join the group as well, and including both people who are good at working with scared people and just empathizing and sympathizing, and especially if you're good at helping also people who are autistic or got bipolar disorder, and good communicating with them. And because it turns out that people with certain mental conditions tend to have more are more vulnerable to these things, and it turns out, or mental characteristics. If you talk about autism, it's like a superpower in some ways. I think autistic people end up kind of superheroes in some ways. They've got a different way of seeing the world, which has got advantages as well as disadvantages. And but we have about a quarter of our members are these autistic superheroes, and then some about the bipolar superheroes, and then we have but there are also an awful lot of people who are it's not a very good word, neurotypical, I don't think it's a good word actually, but we're neither autistic nor bipolar, but I know it's often people who are very imaginative, the other people are most vulnerable to being scared by these stories. Just not had a good science education, which is science isn't their thing, and very good and very imaginative. Those seem to be the three groups of people that are most affected by these stories. And so anyway. Yes, so now you know what Doomsday Debunked. Anyway, so I'll stop this, and hopefully this has helped you. So let's see, how do I stop it playing? Here we go. 25 minutes. Stop.